everybody. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host of the Full Tilt podcast. And TILT is an acronym because we love those, right? Tech Industry Leadership Talks. And I can't tell you how excited and honored I am to have with us today this incredible human being named Huy Tran. She is the Director of Aeronautics at NASA's Ames Research Directorate. And welcome, Huy. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I met Huy in person last year for the very first time in Las Vegas at CES. She gave this incredible inspirational keynote for the Women in Drones, Women to Watch Global Awards program. And before that, by the way, Huy broke all kinds of records with Kevin Morris on the Dawn of Drones podcast, where they ended an incredible year last year on the Dawn of Drones. So I'm telling you, just grab your seats, grab your coffee, and get ready for an incredible journey here, because this podcast is about life and leadership, and there's really no better person to learn about this from than Huy and her incredible journey that started when her family emigrated to the United States from Vietnam. So Huy, let's start at the beginning and tell me what it was like, before we get into your topic of leading diverse organizations. Your background really informs your leadership. And, you came, across the ocean with your family when you were little. And what was that like? What did you experience growing up?
Yeah, so my experience of growing up is, I was born and grew up in the war, Vietnam War. So that kind of gave away my age. So been born in the war and grow up in the war, it teaches you how to be agile, adaptable, and flexible. And also, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, that's when we had the Tet Defensive. So I was at home with my mom, who's pregnant with my younger brothers, and I was with my sister. So during that time, during that night, my dad was out to fight the war, and I was at home with my mom, and my job was to make sure that we stay together. We go into the bunker when we hear the first mortar that hit, and then as our little house get destroyed, we have to run to another one. And I remember, at early as that, I had to find a way to, that lead my sister, my younger sister, to safety with my mom. So, that kind
Wow.
of grow up help you a little bit on, taking charge the time that needed to be, taking instruction when it's time, that's what my dad told us to do. So, so growing up that way. And then when we left Vietnam on a boat to Indonesia, refugee camp, when you get there, we were the first few boats that settled the refugee camp. So there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be established, and I have to say a lot of my leadership learning was from my dad. He actually was a few of those people that set up a roof, and that building the hut in the refugee camp, building in this beautiful island in Indonesia. They have a beautiful waterfall, and my dad and his team had to figure out which portion of the waterfall is for drinking, which portion is for washing and bathing, and vice versa. So that's how, I learned from that. When the situation needs to have a leader, it's somebody will step out and lead the team to make sure that everything is fine, and then also providing safe environment for the rest of the community. And that's
Wow.
how I think, as how I see it, and that's how I learned from it. So, and the woman, we were rather coconut leaves so that we can make panel for the hut and helping, keeping the children safe. So I was part of it. I was about 16 years old at the time. So, in the war country, you're an adult by then. You know what to do, and you expected to act as a part of the community.
Wow, I just got chills listening to you. I mean, I think you just said you were like 6 years old leading your mother, your pregnant mother, and your little sister, kind of to safety, right? And then you get to Indonesia and you're watching your dad build infrastructure, and he's focused on safety, and you're helping build huts and infrastructure. And, this word safety, as I'm listening to you, really ties, I think, deeply into your leadership style and this idea of building diverse organizations, because to be able to do that, I think you really need to be able to create a safe space. And just by listening to you, I better appreciate and understand why this is so important to you, and how you personally are able to build those kind of safe spaces. So let's talk about, so you're 16 years old, you're in Indonesia, and you're watching your dad, obviously sparking interest maybe in your brain, in science, so tell us about that educational journey, because so far your life journey has been really interesting. How did you start studying, aeronautics, and, at what point did you emigrate to the U.S.?
Yeah, so my interest in science started very young. My grandfather, he was in the French military actually to fight World War One, and one day he came home from wherever he went, I don't know. He came home with this picture, a calendar picture that showed a young woman in a lab coat, and he said, "You look like her."
Oh my God. No, think about
Yeah,
that for a second. We're talking
right.
World War One, and he's got a picture of a woman in a lab coat. How rare,
Mhm.
honestly, must that picture
Yeah,
have been? And for
yeah,
him to say to you, like, this could be you?
yeah,
I mean, really a man, I'd say generations ahead of his time.
yeah. So so I looked at it and I said, okay. But I was very young. But I always wanted, since then, that time, I always want to be science. Want to be that woman in that picture in that white lab coat. So my books, when I would have time to read, was the history of Madame Marie Curie. I'm looking up all the famous scientists, and including men like Faraday and Heisenberg and things like that. So I'm always interested in science. And then when I was 5 or 6 years old, that's when the moon landing, right? So I was able to watch the moon landing in a small little town with a small little screen, black and white. But I saw the moon landing, and in where I live, the main light of the night is the moon. We don't have electricity, so and at night outside of your house, you either have a tiny little wicked diesel light, or you go outside when the moon is up. So I'm always interested in the moon. What is this thing that keeps chasing me, or I have to run after it? It can never be staying in the same place. So when I saw the moon landing, I said, wow, that is so great. I wish I can work there, eventually. But at that time, we're in the war. I don't even have electricity. So,
Yeah.
so the
But I mean, it's, I see the NASA logo here, and, it's so interesting how NASA very early in your life also inspired you to become a scientist. And then, of course, the incredible position you have now. We'll get to that eventually. But so you're grabbing everything you can read, about science and famous people that are doing incredible things in the scientific world. At what point did you start a formal education and your degrees?
formal education is for my degree actually in the United States. I went to school. I was able. My parents know that education is very important, and education is a way. What we call education is a way out of poverty for us. So, and also because they didn't go to school. They had an education of 5th and 6th grade, so they want their kids to have more education. So even during the war, I was able to go to school. I go from kindergarten up to 11th grade until when we left Vietnam. And so then we spent about a year in the refugee camp in Indonesia, and then we were able to come to the United States, sponsored by a church, a Lutheran church from Woonsocket, South Dakota. So long story short, my education started formal started here. So I went to, after graduating from high school in Sunnyvale, California, I went to college, junior college, called the Ames College.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I found out that NASA actually have an internship program that I could apply to. And at that time, it's a dream come true, right? Wow,
Right.
I'm actually, this is an internship at NASA, and at that time, they allow they allow green card immigrant to apply, so which was great. Now they don't anymore. But yeah, I apply and interview and got a job and been here ever since. Haven't left.
Wow. So how old were you when you started at NASA as an intern?
So I started in 1982. So it was about 18 years old or so.
Wow. And I think we may have a picture around this time. I'd love to show that now. So this is kind of your early years, your early career. Look at this. I love it. So tell us about those first years at NASA. Like, what were you doing as an intern? And I assume you were also simultaneously pursuing your degree.
Yeah, I go to school full-time, working part-time. And the reason that I have to work is because we needed to help my parents with putting food on the table. But I actually was really lucky, was that I interviewed for the intern position that we are working on improving the thermal protection tile for the space shuttle. So can you imagine, right? Here I am, 6 years old, look at the moon landing, and I am now here in the United States, be able to work on the space shuttle tile. So that was a dream come true.
Wow. Wow. I could, I can just see the joy on your face. It just like radiates that you had this opportunity, and your dream actually has come true, through by working at NASA. So that's just really cool. And so many things you've done since you've been at NASA, and we're talking about diversity. If we and you and I, before we came on screen, we're talking about this idea that diversity is so many facets. It's not just the people, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's diversity of thought, and it's also diversity of mission. So I think we have a couple really cool photos of some of the really neat things you got involved with at NASA that, you think about aeronautical research, but not always just aeronautical. There's so many different facets. So here's a picture of you. It looks like you're at a podium, and it looks like, they put you out front pretty early. So tell us about your progression.
Yeah, so I was working as intern, and after I graduated, I was hired as a contractor at the time for NASA to run the object. This is a facility, and it's only one in the country, is to generate the reentry heat for antibody, and we use that to do a lot of material research for space shuttle, but also for other planetary entry. So I was a young test engineer at the time, coming out of high school, coming out of college, be able to get a job at NASA, staying at NASA Ames, and actually was mentored to be a test engineer running an array of material testing from, like I said, space shuttle tile to new material for entry, aircraft, spacecraft, to application for defense at that time. So the first picture you probably see, that's what I was, a test engineer, a young test engineer running, doing the test and waiting for the facility to to come online.
Yeah.
And then I spent quite a bit of time actually working on the space side. So I was lucky was enough to get put on a team that is working on the first mission, Mars mission, to return to Mars since 1976, which is when the time that Viking 2 were completed. So the mission that I worked on was Mars Pathfinder, finding our way back to Mars. And with that mission, we had a small little rover called Sojourner. And just to see, it's a technology demonstration of a rover on another planet. And I was really lucky to be able to put on the team that brought back the production of the heat shield material that at the time Martin Marietta developed, and brought it back, and then be able to work with the manufacturing with Lockheed Martin to have the heat shield done correctly. And since then, I have been involved in most of the Mars mission as late as the one that won the Mars 2020 in some capacity. So
That's
so
so
then
cool.
yeah.
I was going to say, it's somewhere along the way you received at least one patent, I think, in like a major, let's call it a major award, related to, I think it's related to the heat shield work that you did. Can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, so while I was working for Mars mission, we're also looking for sample return mission. And at that time, I realized that the heat shield material that we have for Mars entry is not capable for Earth re-entry. So a group of my friends and I was doing some research. So we decided that we need to do research, and I had put out 3 requirements for the new material. Number 1, it has to perform well for re-entry, Earth re-entry. From sample return, not not like space shuttle. Number 2, it has to be light enough, and number 3, it has to be inexpensive enough so that we don't spend so much time on that. So, so those are the 3 factor or requirement that we put out to the team, and we were able to develop this new material we call ceramic carbon impregnated phenolic carbon phenolic impregnated carbon ablator. Geez, I can't even remember my so but essentially it's a combination of what I learned from the space shuttle material research to what my love for chemistry. So I combined that 2 interest area of my career into one. Essentially, you're taking a very light fibrous tile, either carbon or ceramic. You impregnate it with an organic compound. And the trick here is to make sure that the density is uniform across the material, and also is lightweight. And that was the trick that have been actually take a long time for people to figure it out, but our team figured it out, and that's what I patent. And is, even though it's expired now, but it's probably one of the most important patent that we have.
Wow. So you're pinging on something that I want to highlight here, this idea of diversity of thought, because you just said you combine a love of chemistry and that background with the love of the kind of materials engineering, if you will. Tell us a little bit about your team, because I imagine that earlier picture we saw of you, the very early one when you got that internship, I imagine you were in many, many respects a minority at NASA. So over time and as your career progressed, did you see a change in kind of the complexion of the people that were working at NASA, and this team that you're talking about in particular that helped you with this patent and this amazing combination for the reentry material? What did that team look like? Who was on that team? So you're a woman. How many other women?
Actually, in our team, the team that developed the material is pretty diverse, right? So I'm one of them, and then I have a Taiwanese woman as a chemist. She's actually the true chemist, and I love chemistry, but I'm not the true chemist. She has a PhD in chemistry, and then I have a friend. What part of my team is on, and three of them actually are some a mid-career male and an older, and a more experienced, what I call seasoned engineer. But talking about diversity, I have to say, like I said, I feel so lucky because my life have been, in some sense, very well thought out for me, right? So when I was a test engineer, unlike lots of places that I've seen at NASA at that time, because I worked in the facility operation, I was able to work with diverse set of people. I work with engineers who mostly are white men, given at that time.
I mean,
but I
and
also,
statistically, I think right now, right, very factually speaking, I think that is still the case.
yeah, it's still the case. But then I also get to work with the mechanics, with the technician that running that facility, and they are diverse. We have one of the lead mechanics is a woman, and we have an Italian as another mechanics. We have a African American man that also is a technician. So, and also the other people. So it's a very to me, I was lucky enough to be able to grow up career-wise in that diversity, and that I really appreciate different people do different things, appreciate of what they do, and that bring the diversity in our thought process. So
No, that's great. And, we have a fan out there, Siddharth Sharma. Number one is saying, this is all amazing. And number two, he has a great question I want to ask you. He says, ma'am, any opinions for making a great team that thinks in terms of the same mission and vision? In other words, the theme here today is leading diverse organization, leading diverse teams. How did you take those diverse teams to kind of follow one mission, one vision to accomplish the amazing things that you were able to achieve?
Yeah. So this go back to what we talked at the beginning, safe environment, right? So you can have a diversity team with a single goal, right? So when we were working on this material, we want to develop a lightweight, high performing, inexpensive to produce ablative material that would enable Earth entry or sample return mission or future mission. So that's the goal, right? Now, how does diversity come into this? Diversity is when we sit down and start talking about how to do things. That's when we, as a leader, you have to be listening to different idea and different way of approaching it, and not say, well, this is how I think we should do it. So I'm still practicing as a leader, right? We have to learn on how to listen and not to be the one that talk first. In fact, to be an effective leader, you have to be the last one that talk. in the meeting. Because when you start talking at the beginning, you already set a stage for people to think your way. So if you just sit back and start asking the question nicely, then you would have the voices of people coming out and trying to refrain yourself from talking, because you should be the last person that talk in the meeting. So that's how I see, that's how you do mission, is that you have a goal, set that goal, making sure that your entire team is focused on that. But the diversity, it come from the people, come from different thought process, how we conduct ourselves. And I think that's how, at least for me, I found that there is successful.
I love that. It's almost like I'm sure you've heard the saying, real leaders eat last.
Right.
And that's really, kind of a metaphor for almost everything a leader should be doing is, putting their people first. And whether it's letting them speak first so you can listen, physically letting them eat first, especially if you're in the military and you're in a chow hall, right? Or just, giving them an opportunity, maybe even before yourself, I think, speaks volumes about your leadership ability. So thank you, Siddharth. That was an excellent question. And what I want to do real quick is roll through there. We have two amazing pictures that kind of get to the diversity of the various missions that you've been involved in. I think we'll roll those. I think the first one, here we go. It's going to pan across, but that is an image of a wind tunnel, one of the largest wind tunnels in the country, and a truck with John Kerry at the time looking on. And so tell us for a second about what this is, because when you think about Ames research director, you think aeronautical research, you don't think of trucks. So what was this one about, and what was the goal, and what came out of this?
Yeah, so last year we had a really great visit from the Honorable John Kerry. He is the special envoy for climate change. So he wanted to go around the country and take a look at what people are doing and and what other kind of technology that we can bring to bear to battle climate change. So he arrived at Ames, and I was able to host him that day. And we went to the NFAC, which is the National Full-Scale Aerodynamic Test Complex that currently right now operating by the U.S. Air Force. But we do work with them quite a bit, yes. And so we were showing, this is the world largest, not just the country, the world largest wind tunnel in the world.
Oh,
so
the
we
world.
were able, the world, And so we were able to show him that, we're using the wind tunnel, we can test a lot of stuff, not besides just aircraft, like we can put a full-size F-18 doing the research in the aerodynamic, but we also test wind turbine blade. We also test the truck, which is the aerodynamic and drag reduction for the truck, and that test was done a long time ago with the NFAC team. But was requested by the Department of Energy. That's when they're looking for how can we reduce the drag on the truck so that we can reduce the fuel burn. And if you go to see one of those, long distance truck, and they have those fairing at the bottom of the box, and then some fairing in the back, that those kind of feature now was because of the research that DOE was looking at, and the NFAC was part of that testing just to see how can we do that. So but it showed the diversity in our mission, from aircraft testing to wind turbine to just a normal thing that we see every day on our freeways, which is cargo truck. So.
Well, and I believe you also been, I mean, you're tackling the toughest problems, not just, as you said, for the country, but for the world. For the past year, maybe two, with climate change, frankly, the world has literally been on fire, Huy, and we both know it. And so you've been involved in wildfire research. So I know you've got a really cool picture here of you. It's panning in, you in a helicopter. So first of all, wow, cool. And
Yes.
second of all, so tell us about like the wildfire research that you're doing there and when you were talking about diverse missions.
Yeah. So actually, so we started this idea because at NASA, and especially at NASA Ames, we're doing a lot of research on air traffic management. So our histories go back 30, 40 years of working on technology that we can transfer to the FAA to help the aircraft controller, the controller to how to manage aircraft safely and reduce the workload and increase capacity, but also to looking at way to reduce fuel burn. How many of us sitting at the tarmac and waiting for takeoff time, right? When you're
Right.
sitting at the tarmac, you expanding a lot of fuel. So therefore you emit a lot of CO2 into the air. So
Right.
we're looking at a way how to reduce that, and we very successfully, and we actually transfer that technology now to the FAA, and they will deploy that. But also, when you come in, whenever you come in and land, used to in the past, you have to do a stair step. And NASA technology actually allow you to do an efficient descent. So then you don't burn so much fuel, because whenever you do a stair step descent, you rev up your engine, burn a lot of fuel, slow it down. So that's not efficient.
Yeah.
As I talked to you in the past, we done also air traffic management for drone, which you are in
Right,
that
right.
community,
Dawn of
right?
drones right
Right,
here.
yeah, right. Which is which have a different paradigm than the commercial right now. So we applied that same framework and see what we can do to help firefighting community to
Yeah.
do air suppression better. So we started a project about 2-3 years ago called Stereo, and which means that we are developing an airspace management system that would allow the air boss to see all the aircraft in the air while they doing their firefighting. If the drone fly, the other aircraft can fly. So can we do something to allow them all flying at the same time? So
Very cool.
the picture that you see was at our visit to Cal Fire in Los Gatos, and they was really nice to host us for a couple hours, because what we want to do is understanding what their need, right? What that community need, and see
Yes.
what we can do to help them. And that's this is it's not a joke, but as I said, on that aircraft, it's a Huey 60,
Yep.
UH-60. The last time I seen that kind of aircraft was in Vietnam, is in green. And
Oh,
it,
wow. And there you were flying on it with, as part of NASA, part of your
yeah,
dream. I mean, just kind of coming full circle is just unbelievable. And, just again, listening to you, like this is leadership in action because you physically went to a stakeholder in California to listen to them as to what their needs were. I mean, Huy, I don't know how many times, just being in the commercial industry now, mostly with UAS, but other advanced tech, you see these companies creating solutions in search of a problem. I think the companies that really do well are those that go to various stakeholders, or where the stakeholders come to a company and say, here's our issue. Can you help us resolve this? Right? Because now
right.
you've got a marriage between the problem and the solution. And,
Yeah.
so that's great stuff. We somehow we only have 10 minutes left. I honestly could talk to you all day long. And by the way, everybody, I wanted to say we may not get to cover all the same ground in Huy's keynote speech at CES, which was in January of this year. If you go to P3 Tech Consulting's Instagram account, you can find that video and watch the entire ceremony, including Huy's keynote, which I highly commend to your attention. So again, not a plug for my Instagram necessarily. That video just happens to dwell there, and it's amazing. If you want to continue to be inspired after you hang up here, go back and watch that. And by the way, before you hang up, if you haven't subscribed to the Full Crew and Full Tilt, please do that. We have the little subscribe thing, and then the bell will give you notifications of when, the next episode and what's coming up. So please do that. We really appreciate it. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper, Huy. I mean, because in your keynote, you talked about your internship programs that you created, probably maybe inspired by what you were able to take part in as a younger adult. You talked about these teams of women that you've created at NASA, and you used the word mentorship earlier. I know that's something that you were a beneficiary of, and certainly you pay that forward on a daily basis. I want to talk a little bit more, let's just say esoterically, about some deeper thoughts on leadership before we kind of end our talk, and then we'll do a quick lightning round at the very, very end. But with everything you have going on, and this is something I like asking everybody because it's something that's so hard to achieve, this word balance. I mean, in your life, the diverse missions, the diverse people, the diversity of thought that you're bringing on into your life every day, and I imagine the hours you're working. Do you have any tips for folks about how to try to, in the midst of all of that, achieve some balance in your life?
Well, if I say I have a balanced life, it's probably not true.
But everybody says that. That's doing great.
It's when people said, yeah, I can balance all this, I don't really believe it, but however, you can try, you have to set the goal for what you wanted to do. Like I said, I love my job. So I get up in the morning, I work, I think about my job, and, beside my family, raising the family when they were young, and now they're adults, so I don't need to worry about that much anymore. But, balancing is, to me, it depends on what you want to do. If you're too tired or you too wound up, probably you need to go for a walk. And that's what we actually do. My husband and I actually, during the pandemic, we'd be able to go for a walk together, 3 miles every day, walking, no talking during walk, really just time to think about what's happening. I like to go walking, and most of the time actually I walk by myself because I need some time down away from everybody talking at me. But also picking up, habit, hobby. I love to cook. I cook pretty well, I was told. So, things like that I'm always thinking how to make the best filet mignon, the next better filet mignon for dinner. So things like that I would say. But also, reaching out to your supporting system, right? Asking for help, because when you know when to ask for help, then you'll be able to help other people. So that is so important, because people are always thinking, oh, you have to help somebody out all the time. So, no, you got to learn when you need help, and then you ask for help. Then you'll be able to help other people too. So yeah, we try, right? We all of us have very busy life with family, work, whatever in the past, in your life. It's hard to balance, but sometimes just take, an hour of the day, go for a walk, or do whatever that you like to do. Play tennis. I don't know.
No, I love that. It's great advice. And I especially love this idea of getting help when you need it, right? So we had Cam Shell from Dragonfly on here recently, and, talked about kind of mental health challenges, right? Like, I'm not going to use his words, but, we're all in some respects, right, screwed up. And, to be able to kind of take somebody else into your head, or like talk that out, or do yoga, or whatever it is that works for you, I think is really key to maintaining not only your sanity, but to be a good leader. Because I agree with you, Huy. If you're not taking care of yourself, how can you possibly take care of others? To use an aeronautical kind of analogy when you're on the plane and those masks drop down, they say put on yours first before you put it on, right? I think that's the best analogy, because if you're not like sucking in your own oxygen in your own life, how can you possibly be there for other people? So by the way, John Typin is out there. He says, thanks both of you for sharing this inspiring leadership story. And John, thank you. Tony Drummond also says, owning our vulnerability is so liberating. Thank you, Huy. This is amazing advice. And so it absolutely is. Boy, there's so many things I can talk to you about. I'm going to do a quick lightning round since we're getting close to the end. I'm going to add a question. And by the way, Tony also, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Tony also saying, congratulations on your inspiring accomplishments. I'm not sure if you know the full power of your leadership by example, so thank you. Honestly, Huy, when this is all over, there are a number of groups I know, STEM, especially the focus on girls. I'm going to absolutely send them this link and encourage them to have their students watch this video to hear and learn from your example. But let me ask you real quick. Lightning round. We've got like 4 minutes left, so less than a minute each. Okay. Who, and you don't have to give a name, but like your best boss, or maybe like the attribute that you took away from the best boss you ever had.
The attribute of the best boss I have. After I have, like I said, my life is so filled with luck, with people around me that actually really helping me. I have mentor that actually give me a really good metaphor for leadership, and I still use it today, right? I was really sick, and I was an intern. I was sick, but I had to go to work because the thing needs to be done at work. And then he said, okay, here you go. He said, he said, if you fill a bucket full of water, then let it settle, and then put your palm print on it. And now remove your hand. Do you still see your palm print? I said, no. He said, nobody is irreplaceable. So when you're sick, you need to stay home and take care of yourself. And so I said, so later then I realized that being a leader is not about trying to leave something. But my job, and I told this to one of my mentees the other day, and she said, well, so what is it that you're trying to leave if you as a leader? I said, when people talk about leadership and leaving legacy, I don't believe in it at all. I don't believe in legacy. So I told her about the story about this bucket. And I said, but my job is to make sure that that bucket is full. It's either full of water, full of talented people, full of funding, and full of diversity. And that's what you need in the leader. We don't leave legacy. We leave a bucket full of something that you created. So for the next generation, and that's what I think leadership needs to be. That's how I go by. Right?
I love that. And I honestly, I would always say to my people too, similarly, I love the bucket story and the analogy. I used to say, leave the place better than you found it. That's right. It. Exactly. How many times did you get a bucket full of what when you took over something? And or like you walk in and the desk is full of literally of garbage, like you didn't even clean out your office that I was moving into. Seriously? Don't do that to people. Just leave it better and fill people's buckets. That is my new motto. I love it. Okay, real quick, 3 quick questions. Now we're gonna have like 30 seconds each, okay, or less. Favorite book?
Favorite book? I don't have a favorite book. Sorry.
Okay, moving on. Your hero?
Oh, my hero. It's Madame Marie Curie, of course.
All right, very cool. And if I recall correctly, Polish. People don't realize this. Was she Polish? Am I thinking of the wrong person?
No, I think she
was French?
Mary French. Yeah, she was French. Yeah.
Who am I thinking of? Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, moving on. One thing you want to leave others with in closing. That's our last thing. Oh, wait a minute, Mike my producer behind the scenes just said she was Polish and French.
And
The reason why I
yeah.
remember that, Huy, is I visited Krakow, and I think I visited her house. That's why I was like,
Oh, really?
Polish. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
She lived in Poland at least for a while. She's Polish and French. Okay, moving on. The one thing, and most people don't know that, and I'm half Polish. So one thing you want to leave others with in closing.
In closing, I think the diversity in leader has to be instilled in everyone. It's not something that you talk about. You have to do something about, right? You know, pick something small, achieve it, but you only have to be on it though, because once you only have to have that thought, when you have a team, look at the team and see, does it make up the diversity that represent what your organization look like, or what your society. Think about diversity in thought process. Not all don't put a whole bunch of software engineer together. Maybe put a business degree person, or a writer together.
God forbid a lawyer.
And a lawyer. So yes, and diversity is that. I find that when you have a team of people that in diverse with full diversity, you will achieve a lot more than what you wouldn't without it. So I'm an example of diversity. So
you are, and you're a shining example. And once again, I thank you so much for being here on this podcast today. We are out of time, so thank you very much, and I look forward to having you on the Dawn of Drones again at the end of this year, and hopefully seeing you in Vegas in person again at CES with Women in Drones. So that is all she wrote, everybody. We are out here.